We've got an interesting show for you about death, past lives, and reincarnation in Scientology. It's come up recently with a lawsuit about somebody who is suing Scientology over the death of a loved one. Anyway, we've got a great guest to talk to us about that. Stay tuned. Here we go. Welcome to our channel, Scientology Peeling the Onion. My name is Mark Fisher. I'm here with my co-host, Janis GIllham Grady. How you doing today, Janis?
Good, Mark. Good day, everybody. Today we actually have a very interesting subject we're going to talk about. Because I saw Tony Ortega has actually done, I think, 3 articles on this recently on the subject of death and reincarnation. What do Scientologists believe? And that's where I thought, Mark, I grew up in Scientology. So what did I believe as a child growing up, and so that's where I thought this would be a fun subject for you and I to discuss, and to also have Karen de la Carriere, because Karen's gone through it with the death of her son. And as one of the highest tech-trained auditors in Scientology, she's had to deal with this. So this should be a fun interview that we're going to do.
Interesting. It'll be very interesting. Please subscribe to our channel and hit that like button. And without further ado, let me introduce Karen de la Carriere. There you go. Hi, Karen. How you doing?
Good. Hi, everybody. Hi.
Hi. Yeah, we thought there's this article that Tony Ortega wrote is based on a lawsuit that was filed by a family of an OT8 Scientologist who killed herself or died, right? Is that right?
This OT8 had just finished Superpower. Thousands of dollars. She had 3 L's. She went all the way up to OT8. She did everything the church demanded of her. And she had enormous depressions, and they had a baby watch looking after her. And all the data will come out in the lawsuit. I bet they're going to settle. They couldn't have this dragged through the court day after day after day. She had a lot of baby watch, and then they left her alone, and she set herself on fire. But God. She wasn't burning to death, so then she took a loaded gun. How could the people who were baby watching her leave her alone with a loaded gun? And she blew her brains out. So this is another...
Was she at home?
In her home in Clearwater.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. In her home in Clearwater. And so this was like a Lisa McPherson replication all over again. Right. Almost as bad as Lisa McPherson, because and another common denominator with Lisa McPherson is her doctor was Dr. Minkoff.
The same doctor.
Yeah, that's right.
And instead of having her have the correct treatment for intense depression, he diagnosed her as having Lyme disease.
Oh my God.
Lyme disease is a tick that burrows into you especially when you do hiking in open fields of grass and all kinds of. Anyway, that's.
Well, I'm gonna add a little bit to it.
So the cult came right out and said, because part of the charge in the lawsuit is they were egging her on to just kick the bucket and telling her, look, you're an immortal being, just, die off and go get another baby body. Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
No, and the part about the family saying is that they Scientology encouraged them to do that, and that there was this end of life process that Scientology has to end their life. And Scientology, in their response to the lawsuit, said, "Oh no, we don't have anything like that. That's not true. We don't have anything like that." The other part of it too is, since Lisa McPherson died, in their whatever, or handling in the late 1990s, Scientology has changed their practice whereby if somebody's having like a psychotic incident, or if they're nearing death or whatever, they move them away from the Scientology organization. They put them in an apartment if you're a Sea Org member, or they tell you to go home, and then they have a field auditor or an auditor come and deliver these processes, apparently, because they don't want their hands dirty of, oh my God, these people died in our church, and therefore the family's going to come after us. So that's the practice they've changed.
Yes. You know, the lies, liar, pants on fire, liar, that the church dared to say there's no such thing as end-of-life assist. Pat Broca announced it to thousands of people. Let me send the title, you put the little clip. It talks about go into an AO, get the procedure. Then he goes, but it's not an invitation to die.
Right.
It's for years, people who were terminal cancer and terminal this and progressing towards terminal requested the end of life assist. Let me tell you very, very briefly, because I want Jenny to really cover Yvonne. This is for those that love Yvonne. This is
Janis, your
Can you
microphone,
move
or
your-
Karen, yeah, your
Karen,
microphone's
your
breaking out.
microphone.
What about it?
Yeah,
Move it
that's
closer
better.
to
Can you hear me now?
That's
Can
better
you hear
now.
me now?
Yeah, that's much
Okay.
better.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you move
Okay.
your hands, by the microphone, it knocks out the sound.
Oh, I talk with my hands.
That's
So
okay.
do I.
Yeah. So let me so the church just stupidly, what is wrong with them? Well, we know plenty is wrong with them. They lied. End of life assist was used by hundreds and hundreds of people over the years. Let me very briefly cover what it is. As I just said, I want Yvonne's story to be predominant in this. Not anyway. End of life assist. Hubbard had reams of issues written on being in the body and being out of the body, which is called remote viewing, and other things, other titles are given. Out of the body means you're not jammed in as a little marble in your brain. You're not that. So you're either in the body, you're just totally inside the body, or with counseling and people take ayahuasca and all, you go out of the body.
Yeah, call it exteriorization.
And it's called
Right.
exteriorization. And
Yeah.
being in the body is called interiorization. And I want to just tell you briefly that auditors have huge, gigantic misunderstoods on this. So they run the rundown wrong. Exteriorization, truthfully, is you as a spirit getting bigger, bigger, bigger. You get bigger than your body. You get bigger than the room. You're not some little coin that's thinking of you as like a dimensional pea in a pod, and you hop out of your head and you stick in the ceiling and watch everything from below. That's just hogwash. The truth is, exteriorization is you growing bigger, bigger, bigger. So all the auditors recall a time you went in and the person runs walking into a room, walking into a car. Then looking at going in means going into your case, going into your spiritual universe. That's what go in means. Go in, went in, can't get out, trapped. All
Right.
these in buttons are going into case. Your spirituality, not going into a room, going into a theater. Ugh. So the whole thing is ballsed up, and they have something called end of endless correctionless, because people just continue to have problems. The whole thing is a gross money grabbing thing with no result because they don't know what they're doing. Okay, that's
Right.
my class 12 CS adjudication.
Okay.
Very quickly, I want to get on to Jenny. End of life assist is to help you leave the body smoothly and without masses of drugs and painkillers, and because if you have cancer, they may have you on morphine, which is going to jam you further in. Drugs pummel you in. So end of life assist first takes care of interiorization, exteriorization, which the cult don't have a clue on how to do. I just explained to you. It's just absolute not. They're treating you like a little balloon, like a little solid lead pellet in your brain, and you come out of your brain. And rather than exteriorization is you emphatically getting bigger, bigger, bigger. You're so big that you can encompass the universe. That's true exteriorization. So end of life assist is handling it. Hopefully then you'll just go to bed, sleep, and go out of your body and grow bigger, bigger, bigger. That would be ideal. So end of life assist starts off with handling interiorization, exteriorization. Then it handles rudiments. Rudiments are upsets, disharmony, long-term animosities with others. You don't want to die as an enemy to anyone. You want to die as friends to all, like Janis has all her friends to everybody. So you handle your ARC breaks. If someone has given you endless problems, yeah, go ahead, Janis.
ARC break is affinity, reality, and communication. So it's a break in any of those three that gets addressed with Scientology auditing. Now, I also just wanted to bring up a clarification, because there's some people that in Scientology, you believe you are the spirit and you have a body, where I've noticed some other people believe they are the body and they have a spirit. So we're talking from the angle of you are the spirit and you have a body for identification. So
Perfect.
Yeah.
You can't have a body. You have a kidney, you have a heart, you have a nose, you have ears, but you don't have a spirit. That's who you are.
Right.
That's
Right.
what Janis just said. You are the spirit. So handling long duration animosities, past problems, secrets, withholds that you had, that you never divulged, you tidy all that up in end of life. You tidy it up, you get it off, you smooth it all up. And then Hubbard said, the moment you leave your body, this is Hubbard, I don't believe it for a moment, that you are completely, utterly discombobulated. You don't know north from south. You are dizzy Miss Lizzie. You are completely, and you've got to grab a star. You've got to see a moving planet and circle around it like the running program. Now, there are hundreds of videos on YouTube on people who had near-death experiences. Mm-hmm. And they died for 5 minutes. There was no heartbeat. There was nothing. They were dead.
Right.
And they tell you the journey of what happened. They move towards light. They feel incredible love. They feel just a deep, bathing love for it. None of them say, I was discombobulated, like Hubbard says. I was dizzy, Miss Liz. I couldn't.
Right.
Hubbard may have been talking about his own theory, but that does not bear out with thousands of videos on YouTube, which people died, and not one of them say they were spun around in complete.
Right. I actually experienced that with my daughter. When she was giving birth to my granddaughter, she actually died.
Oh.
And she left. And I'm holding this body and I'm yelling at her to get back in her body. Because she's got a daughter she's going to have to take care of. But yeah, so I actually experienced that, and then she finally came to, but that body had stopped.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow, you got to do a video of that, getting her back to life. Anyway, the thing is that it's just Hubbard's. First of all, Hubbard explained why you have to run around a star. Why the moon, Mars, whatever, you just run around. And even that gives huge ludicrous misunderstoods to the world, because you don't run when you're in another dimension without a body. You're not running around. It's just making it sound like you have spiritual legs and you go, blah, blah, blah. This is just hogwash. This is Hubbard's deterioration in his later years and giving out fake data like that. You have to run. You have to run. The whole of the running program, the torture of the running program is designed on you running. This business of running to get spiritual enlightenment is hogwash, lunacy. So the third step of the end of life assist is grab on, just like you have a pole and you run around and you keep watching the pole, the running program. There's a palm tree or a pole. So instead of a palm tree, you have a star. And you're supposed to run. You have no legs. You have no body. You're in a different dimension. But you have to spin around, spin. This rotational thing is just... I've already expressed what I think of it.
Yeah.
Right? Jenny?
Yeah. So...
well, and that's what they... So it's false that they're saying that doesn't exist, right, Karen? Scientology is saying it doesn't exist. This end of life process, right?
Oh, yeah. This is, I mean, they can have tons of people coming out and attesting that their sister was run on it, their brother, their cousin. There's almost no one that you know who hasn't had a close experienced death. There's just no one who has not experienced a very close relative die. I'm not saying that because of Alexander and the fabulous Paul Grady. I'm just saying, and 30, 40 years from now, none of us are going to be alive. We all would have the video on this video. YouTube doesn't take down. I've got people who talked to me years ago. They're dead and gone. The video, they're talking from beyond.
Right.
Jenny, I do want the emphasis. I do want the Yvonne. I want to just tell the world, because the world simply loved Yvonne. They just loved Yvonne. And Hubbard ordered that because she started the celebrity centers, that she have a memorial there. And there was a beautiful, the rare pictures of Yvonne, the accomplishments, the awards that she received in her lifetime. I want to tell you something that really moved me, and then I'm over to Jenny.
Okay.
I read what somebody wanted on their gravestone, talking about death. And they wanted on their gravestone, be ashamed of dying and leaving the earth unless you have contributed something meaningful to mankind.
Wow.
Right? You're doing it with your videos, Mark. Jenny's doing it every day. You be ashamed to just kick the bucket and pass, and you've done nothing, effing nothing for humanity.
Right.
What a great
good point. That's
a
great
point.
Yeah. So let's go on to my mother. When she was dying, Hubbard came back from Sparks, Nevada, and she was already at Flag, being audited, not in good shape at all. And that's when Hubbard actually sent a CS down to David Mayo.
CS, tell them what a CS is.
A case supervisor instructions to David Mayo. First, the step was to do a director of processing interview with her and find out, did she want to live or did she want to handle the illness because she had brain tumors? So those were the questions asked of her. And apparently her answer was that she wanted to drop the body because she felt it was a shorter runway to drop the body and get a new body and start again, rather than heal this one and then have a few years left, because she was 50 years old. She was young. So that's what was asked of her, and her decision was to die. So then the next instruction to David Mayo was basically what Karen was saying, I guess, to do the interiorization, exteriorization, and get it so that she can go in and out of the body and become more in control or cause over her dying. And then one of the instructions was to go and run around a planet, go find a planet and run around it to get reoriented. So now that's what was done with her. And then when she passed away, this was in, there was a celebrity magazine done up on her. And this was in.
Hold it up again. Hold it up so people
here.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So this is a magazine just done strictly on her, people's different stories and tributes to her and photographs and that type of thing. But this talks about her accomplishments on, she set up several celebrity centers in her time. Celebrity Center Los Angeles, New York, Las Vegas, Canada, Mexico. She also set up a lot of Mexican missions. She did Boom Israel Project, and then she also set up the public relations org to feed into Celebrity Center. And Hubbard's instructions were that Celebrity Center Los Angeles was to be a shrine for Yvonne. And that was originally done, as Karen was saying, with the beautiful stuff, photos of her and things like that. But it was interesting. Years later, when Amy Scobie left Scientology, I was talking to Amy, and she'd been Watchdog Committee member for Celebrity Center for like 10 years after I'd left. And she was telling me that she'd never seen the advice from Hubbard about setting up Celebrity Center as a shrine. So I can only say that Miscavige had that taken out of all the advices, because as the Watchdog Committee Celebrity Center, Amy should have read every single advice on Celebrity Center.
And when you say advice, that means order. That's an L. Ron Hubbard order. Yeah. Yeah.
Advice is where he sent down a letter instructing things, and we always just call them advices because he wasn't supposed to be running the church, but he was. And those were advices that were really orders.
They were advised by lawyers that he shouldn't be managing the church. So he got this new title, consultant. And when he sent down an order, it was a consultant's advice. And you could tell it was Hubbard because he used an asterisk star. Mm-hmm. That star was a symbol that this was straight from Hubbard. And so the fudging of it all was, his order was law.
Right.
Written in cement, written in with an atomic brand iron. But it was only an advice by a consultant. That was the bait and shift.
Right. All right. So we've established what happened when my mother died as to what the auditing process was. So now let me go into her beliefs. Having been born into Scientology, my parents were already into their various beliefs, and Hubbard was coming out with the 1950s technology on Scientology. One of the biggest things, like what got my dad in, was past lives, the belief in reincarnation. And I remember as a 5-year-old going to school to tell them about my mother and her past life. She had told me about it, how she had sailed to Australia with Captain Cook. And there's Captain Cook. He discovered Australia 10 years before they sent the first fleet down from England. Anyway, so she said she sailed as the first mate on Captain Cook's ship. And that's how she ended up down in Australia. And she really enjoyed that country. And so I then went to school on show and tell. And I told the whole class of 5-year-olds about how my mother used to be Captain Cook's mate. And everyone, at 5, you still knew that Captain Cook discovered Australia, because we all told the little rhyme of Captain Cook chased a chook all around Australia, lost his pants in the middle of France and found them in Australia.
And you still remember that? Was a Chinese school that?
No, all the kids just would always say it. So I know that everyone knew who Captain Cook was when I, as a 5-year-old, stood up there and told them my mother came to Australia as Captain Cook's mate. Anyway, my teacher sent me home with a note to my mother saying that I had a wild imagination. Anyway, so we always kind of laughed about that, but we still believed in past lives and future lives. And the public and the staff at our mission in Scientology, they all believed in it. They would pull out the e-meter and they would sit on the cans, one person holding the cans and one running the e-meter, and they would talk about past lives. Who do you think you were? Oh, what year was that? And they'd watch for the reads on the e-meter to determine if it confirmed who they said they were or not. And my dad and Roger Meadmore used to get into it. And my dad had said he was Ned Kelly. Now, in Australia, we have, Ned Kelly is probably the equivalent of the Jesse James of America, just so people would understand. And Ned actually had a tin can that he wore on his head, and it had a little slit for eyes, and he wore body armor so that they couldn't shoot him. And he grew up, he was an Irishman, and his mother used to be approached by a policeman who was always hitting on her. And because she wouldn't give in to the policeman, she ended up in jail, and Ned wanted to get her out. And he started robbing banks to get the money to get his mother out. And he actually would also give money to other people, the poor that needed food and that type of thing. So he had his good and his bad. And my dad used to always say that he was Ned Kelly. Now, the interesting thing is Ned Kelly, he put Euroa on the map. Oops, sorry. Ned put Euroa on the map. Euroa is the town that I was born in. And every time we would go back to Euroa, Dad would bring shovels and he would have us kids. He'd lead us through all these rocks, through private land. We'd climb over barbed wire fences and so forth because he knew where Ned Kelly had buried his treasures. And so we would crawl into these little caves because he was too big, and we'd find sheep skeletons. We never did find the gold. But this was like growing up with parents who strongly believed in who they were. Yes, Mark?
I was going to say, to add to that, a couple of things. Number one is that, Scientology believes in past lives because L. Ron Hubbard said you've lived many lifetimes. It's not like people just started saying it and then he goes, oh, you believe that you're this or you're that? No, he promoted, that was part of the Scientology, right? But just so people know, I mean, past lives and reincarnation is part of Buddhism, it's part of Hinduism and Scientology and other religions too. So it's not like this strange viewpoint that people have. I mean, the majority of the religions of the world, I think, believe in reincarnation and Buddha, and past lives. Christianity does not, believes in heaven and hell and all that sort of stuff. And we're not trying to cast any aspersions on anybody's religious beliefs or whatever, because they're born on faith. But similar to you, Janis, when I was 10 years old, way before I got into Scientology, I knew that I believed in reincarnation. I'd gone to Sunday school and was taught different Christian stuff and all that, and it just wasn't for me. And I'm only 10 years old. My parents didn't push me one way or the other, but I just really had the strong feeling that I'd lived before this lifetime. And when I first got into Scientology, when I was 14, 15 years old and had my first auditing sessions, that registered with me right away, because in my first life repair sessions, all of a sudden they're going back and back. And then I got validated on, oh, when was that? And I'd start telling this thing that happened to me and all that. And it was from a previous life, So that really reinforced for me, like, oh my God, I have lived before this life and that type of thing. And I still believe to this day that when I die and drop my body, I'll, go pick up another one. I believe in eternal life, but I believe in eternal life as a spiritual being. That's my belief. Now, that may be different to somebody else's. They may believe as Christians going to heaven or hell or whatever, but that's my belief. And people are allowed to believe what they want to believe.
Right, right. And interestingly enough, when Scientologists are dying, they are told to go to the nearest hospital and pick up a body, or if you pick up a ghost in your area. And I know of people who knew they were dying and they were Scientologists, and they would find who was pregnant that they knew. And then they would make agreements with that mother that they willed their belongings to that unborn child so that they can get their riches when they in their next life. And it's just like the Egyptians, I guess they have that with the pyramids. They bury them with valuables to take with them on their next journey.
Right, which that brings up two other things too. Hubbard believed that he was Cecil Rhodes in a previous life. Cecil Rhodes is the explorer and who founded Rhodesia, and then which is now Zimbabwe. And Janis, you said this is a photograph that Hubbard took years later, right, on the ship, posing as sort of Cecil Rhodes, dressed as Cecil Rhodes, right?
Right. I just want you say Cecil Rhodes, but I guess the English version is Cecil Rhodes.
No, Cecil is how it's pronounced.
Well, we've always said Cecil Rhodes.
Cecil's American. Cecil's the American version. But anyway.
Oh, okay. Anyway, yeah. So he did believe he was Cecil Rhodes.
Well, Hubbard also believed he was Buddha, and at least 10 other very famous identities.
But I wanted to tell the story, Karen, about this picture. Go ahead, Janis.
Yeah, so Hubbard had this picture done, and he's dressed up like Cecil Rhodes would have been dressed up. And then Kimma Douglas, who was in charge of Hubbard's household unit, and she's from Rhodesia, which is where Rhodes is named, Rhodesia is named after Cecil Rhodes. So she says to him, well, it's known in Rhodesia that he was actually a homosexual. And after that point, he never brought it up again. These photos were not, the whole campaign on it never released because he didn't want to be associated with that. And if he really had been him, he would have known more about him rather than what you can get from an encyclopedia.
Right. And Karen, go ahead. Go ahead, Janis.
Yeah, I was just going to say that growing up, you hear different people talking about who they were. And I remember at St. Hill, there must have been over 500 Queen Elizabeths I, but people tend to pick famous people, but no one picks being the beggar on the street or the cobbler down the road or the baker. You don't hear those stories. Yes, Karen.
Jenny, I'm telling you, Mark, as a CS, I must have looked at folders where hundreds of people were Julius Caesar and were assassinated. Hundreds of people in an earlier life were Napoleon Bonaparte, were Alexander the Great. Hundreds. When Quentin died, I must have had 2,000 folders over Celebrity Center and Flag when I transferred to FSO. And all these new babies, the mother said, "Oh, it's L. Ron Hubbard's son." I got absolute evidence. So people maybe a little bit not truly believing in their own goodness and invincibility and immortality, try to latch on to, who cares what fame you had in a past life, unless you're running out the charge. It's what you do this life in the here and now, right?
Karen, that's how I believed. I didn't care who I was in a past life. I just believed that I did. It didn't matter who I was. You know what I mean?
Right.
What happened now in this present day, that's what mattered.
Right.
Well, what's interesting, Karen, you bring that up because I remember after my mom passed, when I'd go to LA and there's people with babies, they're shoving their babies in my face to see if there's a recognition, or people would tell me, "Oh yeah, I was Yvonne," and here's a funny story. When it was at my dad's celebration of life, he had passed. My niece shows up, and she was named after her grandmother, Yvonne. So she goes up to someone and she introduces herself as Yvonne GIllham. Well, then someone comes to me and says, this person over here is really nuts. They introduce themselves as your mother. They think they're reincarnated as Yvonne. I said, no, that's my niece.
Because your brother and his wife named their daughter after your mother.
Exactly. It was just so funny that someone think there was an imposter. Yeah. But yeah, I had so many babies shoved in my face, of people trying to see if there was recognition of that being Yvonne.
And then Karen, I was going to go ahead. You mentioned Hubbard thinking he was Buddha, right? Go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. When Hubbard would be on the deck, sometimes in a really good mood, a whole circle of people would, his top aides and people like John Horridge and it was known that he would spin these yarns and he would tell great stories. And in many of the stories, he was this famous general commander of, and he was this, he had a slew of famous, electrifying past identities, including the most well-known is Cecil Rhodes. I say Cecil, you say Cecil. And Buddha. Those are the most famous. But he seemed to stress what a famous guy he was through successive lifetimes.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
all right.
Of course, since then, we've been waiting for him to come back, and some guy says he's L. Ron Hubbard reincarnated, and I think he's in jail or something.
Oh yeah,
I don't even follow that.
I don't either. He started up an email thing with me, and he's just started trying to say, asking me questions, and I'm like, you're not who you say you are. You don't even know different things, And then he started trying to invalidate me for what I do because I don't recognize him. I'm just, anyone who follows him they're going to get, I don't know. I'm not for him and I won't support him. Yeah. Anyway, I want to bring up after my mother passed, and we had, actually before she passed, probably about a year before she passed, we had gone on a leave together with my mom, my sister. She was married to Jerry at the time, Jerry Armstrong, and Heber. And we got to stay at Cass Warner's home up in Laurel Springs out in Santa Barbara. And this is the last picture I have of myself and my mom together. And we're sitting in front of the old Spanish mission of Santa Barbara. And here's Mom, me, Jerry Armstrong, and Heber. Again, we're out at the waterfall, at the fountain at the front. And it made that Santa Barbara mission very special to me. Here's Heber had a convertible at the time, and here's Jerry and my sister and me in the convertible. I remember driving up there, and Heber would start singing, and Mom would join in, and Heber would go, "Oh, Yvonne, please stop singing," because she could not hold a note or a tune or whatever you call it. Neither could I. None of us could. And Heber was a great singer. He would sing The Impossible Dream and different songs as we're driving along. But anyway, it was funny with my mom trying to join in. And then here's Heber leading the way. He saw a landmark and decided to climb on it and point the way to who knows where. But we were all just having a good, fun time. There's Mom riding Castle Wings' horse. We all would go horse riding, and we'd all go swimming together. And here's Heber my dad on the left, Heber next to him, Jerry in the middle, and then my mom and me. And, we just had a great time hanging out in Santa Barbara. And that's what made the Santa Barbara mission, Spanish mission, really means something to me. And what was interesting is when Paul and I left, we went to Ojai, which is right near Santa Barbara. I'm like, Paul, we got to go to Santa Barbara. I've always wanted to go back there since we'd gone before. And Paul was like, oh, no, it's out of the way. And then one day we're going up. There's a bunch of us girls, and we're driving past Santa Barbara, and we're going up to San Luis Obispo. And there's probably 5 of us girls in the car, and we're all ex-Scientologists. And I'm like, let's stop in at the Santa Barbara mission. And they're like, oh, no, let's just do it on the way back. We want to get up to San Luis Obispo. And I'm sitting in the back, and I started feeling very upset. And I actually had tears running down my face because I just felt drawn to the Santa Barbara mission, and I couldn't tell you why. Anyway, so we go up to San Luis Obispo, and we do a girls' reunion up there of about 12 of us. And then we coming back, and we stop in Solving, and I'm like, we've got to go to Santa Barbara. So 2 carloads of us stop at Santa Barbara. It's like Sylvia Calhoun, Liz Gablehouse, Sue Rabage, Spanky Taylor, myself, my sister, and Mo Samuels. So there's like 7 of us. And we stop at Santa Barbara, and I'm feeling a relief. Thank God we're here, you know. And I was so happy about it. And we step into the reception area, and Calhoun goes, I'm buying yours and Terry's tickets to get in. And we're like, oh, okay, thank you. And then she buys this beautiful candle for me. And she's like, this will mean something to you because your desire to come here. Now, none of these ladies knew really why I wanted to go here, but they were with us. We step out of reception into the center of the mission. And this is there's the center behind Terry and I there. But we step in there, and all 7 of us at once suddenly felt a spiritual engulfment around us. And we all look at each other as we're all crying, all 7 of us. It was like, what the hell? And I just got shingles down my back, and I was like, Mom is here. And every one of us that was there had a relationship with her. And every one of us picked her up and felt her hug us as a group. And then you could feel it just there was a satisfaction. And then she just kind of disappeared. And it was like, and I've never had that desire anymore where I'm like feeling I'm drawn. I have to go to Santa Barbara.
What year was this? What year was this?
This was around probably 2012.
Oh.
It was a long time where I was like, I've got to get to Santa Barbara. And I always still had a lot of charge on my mother's death. But after that, it was like I was able to accept it. And I'd always ask people questions. Well, what happens to a spirit when it leaves the body? And how come I sometimes feel her still around? Shouldn't she have a new body? But all those questions kind of went away with this engulfment of the 7 of us. And all of us, it was just an amazing spiritual moment. And some people might think I'm nuts for saying this, but that's what was real to me. That's what really real. And I've never had that feeling since.
Yeah, it's hard to explain that, people call it faith, you know what I mean? I mean, you can't see a spirit, do you know what I mean? You can't feel life. You can feel life force. I mean, you can touch a tree or hold your hand back. You can feel a force, but you can't see it. So it's hard for people to believe something they can't see. But, people do believe in religion. They believe in God. They believe in the devil. They believe in whatever they want to believe in. And that's their choice. They can believe what they want. But everybody has experiences that's hard to explain,
Right. Exactly. It is hard to explain. I hope everyone understands what I'm trying to say. But it was more of a emotional feeling that also affected the body to communicate those feelings. Yeah.
Did you want to say something, Karen?
No, this is just a remarkable story. Of course, I know all the 7 of you.
Yeah.
And
Right.
the fact that it was done to everyone in a co-create hug, and that everyone felt this, had tears. It was quite a story. Thank you for sharing that, Jenny.
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
if it was just me, I wouldn't have
Yeah.
really believed it. But all 7 of us
Yes.
went through the same thing.
Yes.
And that's
Yeah.
what was amazing about it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, the other
Very
thing I
much.
want to go into next is the fact that about death and all that is that L. Ron Hubbard died in 1986, and Janis, what Ray Madoff you said, right? This is Ray right here in the middle.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me bring that story up. I was
Okay.
actually Ray's boss at the time. And oh, no, I wasn't. I was his boss later. But anyway, he was the senior CS international at the time.
Right.
And he had actually been ordered to go and get my mother's PC folder and find the original instructions from Hubbard to Yvonne on her how to drop the body and, distancing herself and so forth. And so he had to go and find that. And then he went up to Creston while Hubbard was still alive and ran those same processes on Hubbard to ease him into being able to drop the body. And Ray spent several days up there, and he'd never met Hubbard before. And so he was actually pretty proud of himself, having finally gotten to meet the man of the tech that he was now responsible for, because he'd replaced David Mayo as the international case supervisor over everybody else.
Right.
So
And
yeah,
this is Creston. This is the ranch that Hubbard died at, and of course, it looks beautiful whenever this picture was taken. But at the time that he died, it wasn't as renovated as you see in this picture. But he died. That main house there was under renovation up on the top, and he was living in a Bluebird motorhome at the time, and that's where he passed away, was in the Bluebird motorhome. But he had instructions about this ranch, and of course we've talked about this on other videos about how he left all these instructions to set, for the Church of Spiritual Technology to save all of his manuscripts and recordings and all that, and put them on titanium plates and bury them underground and all that, so that they could be found in the future if civilization ends. And this is the horse track at the Creston Ranch, and then those 2 circles interlocking in the center there with the diamonds in the middle. That was the symbol that he wanted in the middle there at all of these remote locations, so that he could, quote unquote, find the location based on the symbol, and be able to come back and get his materials or whatever it was that was going on. And so that was what he was thinking. Go ahead, Karen. Do you want to say something?
You see that? You see the baloney here. This is saying that he needed human eyes to see a human symbols,
Symbol.
and that he wouldn't be able to find as a spirit in a different dimension. He needed to have a racetrack with symbol. This is all Hubbard's baloney. I really got to say, it's completely utter nonsense. You don't need human eyes to look at a human symbology to find anything once you've departed. It leads you in a wrong direction. It's like the Catholics saying, if you play with your wee-wee, it'll fall off. And this is a religion giving you false data. And Hubbard has all these bulletins on false data stripping and that, but he did give out false data. I really protest that he had to have, that he wouldn't be able to find his way back unless there was a racetrack with these symbols. And it's almost like in his dimension, he needed human eyes to identify a location. That's that's not understanding spirituality at all. Mm-hmm.
And it's actually very against what a Scientologist believes, because it's a body, and you can actually be very raw. I don't know how else to say about death. You become tone dead to to the subject of death. When you have a friend who is dying, or a parent or a sibling who is dying, you're not supposed to get emotional.
You're
You're not
emotionally
supposed,
detached. You're
right?
detached
You're
emotionally.
exactly. You're emotionally detached because it's just the body that is dying, and that spirit is going to go on, and you're going to still see them. And it's not that it's a loss of
The
that
person.
person, because they're a spirit. And
Right.
that's how very detached. And when someone does die, you kind of have a detached relationship to them, or connection to your friends who just had a loss.
Right.
And I know when I left Scientology and someone died, I was detached from that because, well, they're still going to be around. They live for eternity. It's just the body that's passed on. And it actually is it's a failure to have emotions.
Yeah.
And I know growing up, you weren't allowed case on post, so you weren't allowed emotions. And I actually went through that with my mother's death, when after I came back from her memorial, I went on watch with Hubbard, and Mary Sue had just found out that Yvonne had passed away, and she was in Los Angeles, and Hubbard was in La Quinta. And he was reading Mary Sue's letter, and now he wanted to dictate an answer. Well, I happened to be the messenger on watch. So I was at the typewriter, and he was in his chair behind me, and he was going to dictate a letter to Mary Sue. And so he's dictating to me as I'm typing away. And then he's answering her Mary Sue's question about, well, what happened with Yvonne? And so he's answering that, and I'm typing away, and I'm not allowed to have case on post. I am bawling my eyes out while I am typing up this letter. And I'm kind of thinking, does he not realize that's my mother he's talking about? And I'm also thinking, I can't have case on post. I can't break down. Just keep typing. And then he suddenly realized who he was dictating to. And he says, and my back is to him, and he says, "Are you okay?" Well, I'm not going to turn around and show him I'm bawling my eyes out, because I didn't want to get in trouble for case on post. So I'm sitting there, yeah, I'm okay. And then he was, oh, okay. And then he just continued the dictation while I'm continuing to cry. It was one of the cruelest things I could go through, but it just shows you where you're trying to detach from the loss and not have emotions about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's part of the Scientology and Hubbard's indoctrination. No case
Right.
on post.
Yeah.
Don't emotionally react to anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If anything, Karen, as an auditor or stuff like that, people would have loss, call them secondaries, and
Yeah.
get that emotion out. You would cry and get it out, and then it would be gone after that. Once you let it all out, because it's not healthy to hold it all in. You let it all out, and then the idea was, it was gone.
Perfectly said. No case on post is simply put your case on suppress. The case
Right.
doesn't vanish, it's just on suppress. I
Right.
do want to give one little nugget of a sort of a techie type thing to do with Yvonne's death. Hubbard summoned Yvonne's folders, and somehow or another, even though Quentin died quite a few years, 76, before Yvonne passed.
Couple years. Yeah.
2 years. The common denominators were studied between these two folders. And the common two sets of folders, they were really studied intensely. And the common denominator that Hubbard said was the why was that they were both run on Dianetics after going clear. Yvonne was run on masses of Dianetics.
Oh, yeah.
On after clear. And so Hubbard then had this epiphany and sent out frantic telexes. No Dianetics on a clear. And if they are clear, declare them. I mean, And hundreds of people poured into the org for status to be declared clear, and all of these were overturned over and over, and people would attest clear and have it canceled and on and on.
Right.
But it was, so Hubbard was trying to find out why their cases got messed up and what his pronouncement was. Well, both of them got messed up because of R3R being run on them. Now that was procedure. Now, even I'll let the audience, I'm just giving the data, you decide. I'll let the audience decide if really Yvonne evolved a brain tumor because of R3R after clear, and if Quentin repeated attempts at suicide was because he had R3R. I'm just reporting what occurred. I'll let the audience decide the truth and veracity of that.
Right.
Okay. I want to go on to mention, about Hubbard when he died, right? When we left the Sea Org, Janis and I and Paul and Fernando and all, we were still Scientologists. We were still true believers. And we thought that Hubbard would come back and he'll sort things out when he comes back. Our disagreements were with David Miscavige at the time. And we thought, well, he's going to come back. He said he's going to come back and all that. So we'll just wait it out at some point and go. Now that took a while for us to peel our onions. We talked about that in the last video that we did, where I started going like, oh, that's ridiculous, right? But I really thought when I left that this will be the true test of whether or not there's really past lives. If Hubbard comes back, takes a body, and starts his life all over again, that would really prove that the past lives exist, right? Well, that didn't happen. Okay, so obviously, like you said, Janet, Karen, about just run around a star and you're in discombobulate and all that. You know what I mean? It's like it's not true. You know what I mean? And like I said, it's a matter of faith. So my faith in past lives changed a little bit, but I still believe in it. But one of the things I wanted to point out is that David Miscavige, okay, in order to keep Scientology going and all that, right? Well, he promotes the fact that Hubbard's going to come back to the point where he tore down a perfectly good house at the Gold Base called Bonneview, and he built this multi-million-dollar mansion for L. Ron Hubbard's return. And there are still Sea Org member staff, apparently, laying out his clothes on a daily basis for his return. And as Karen mentioned earlier, before we started the show, and organizations all over the world, they have an L. Ron Hubbard office. It's really a museum, but they leave out packs of cool cigarettes just in case he decides to show up. But it just goes how crazy it is that they wasted millions of dollars on this big mansion that's just sitting there gathering dust. And I can imagine what that Sea Org members who are in there cleaning it on a daily basis, they must be thinking, oh my God, I've committed 1 billion years to this and all I got to do is clean this house that nobody's going to ever live in.
Well, correction, Mark. It's not gathering dust because they dust it daily.
That's what I mean. In other words, it's like, oh, I got to dust this because he may be here today. But I mean, can you imagine that
Right.
existed as a staff member? You had dedicated your life to clean this place that nobody's ever going to live in.
Well, we've said a lot of things, and I know Jenny will totally agree with me on a kind of wrapping up final sentence. People on the internet tend to call Hubbard a con man and stuff like that. I believe, I know Janis joins me, Hubbard truly believed what he wasn't deliberately writing stuff to scam people. It's very possible to believe your own bullshit. People go into hypotheticals. What if this happened and that? And then they believe their own hypothetical. It's very easy to believe your own bullshit. Hubbard didn't write with the purpose of trying to con people. He did go down a dark path. He did go off the rails. He did do, his vengeance thing and all these OSA network guardian orders to just fair game and destroy an opponent and all. That was all off the rails. But in the terms of the technology he wrote, all these red volumes, Jenny, please chip in now. He did sincerely believe in
what he was doing.
He believed he was not a born con man. He did go down evil paths, but he was not a con man deliberately writing issues to fool people. Jenny?
Right. I absolutely agree on that. And going back to my mother's death, when he found out that she had passed away, he actually had written a case supervisor instructions for my brother and I to be taken in session. So interestingly enough, I was on Liberty and I was driving back and I felt my mother's presence.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, something's going on. And I just kept feeling her around me. And I got back to the base and my watch had stopped. And it's never worked since. It was a watch she gave me for my 21st birthday. And anyway, Hubbard had the concern because he believed in it to get my brother and I in session right away to audit out the loss. But, but he was surprised when I told him I was going to her memorial service. He was like, why? She's dead. Why are you going to memorial service? But, I went anyway and I got to experience at her memorial service, Tony Dunleavy standing up there doing a service, and you could feel her presence and the rustling of one plant. There was no wind anywhere and it's moving and it's like, hey, that's Mom over there showing us that she's here with us. So it was good that I went because, and I know a lot of other people have the same experience of when someone dies, feeling their presence, and they come back and they tell you things. That happens to me when Paul passed away. I'd be driving, of all things. He hated my driving. And that's when I would feel him in the car with me. So anyway, that's just a few little stories.
It's very interesting, even though the end of life assist has been run for decades, since 1986, but it's interesting that Annie Tidman, who was so close to Hubbard and actually lived with Hubbard with Pat the last 6 years of his life.
Right.
Once she was terminal, she was shoved into an apartment. They own an apartment building opposite Celebrity Center on Bronson.
Yeah.
All she got was touches. They didn't even use their own end of life on a messenger who had been there since she was a child. All those years, she got nothing.
Yeah.
So it's certainly public. I want to emphasize, the cult is lying when they say there's no end of life assist. The cult is lying. It's a lie. Uh-huh.
Well, and just to bring it back full circle to where we started, we hope this lawsuit goes forward and, the lies are exposed. We hope that we've given you some information about what Scientology believes about death and past lives and life after death, to explain a little bit what's going on. And like Karen said, they're lying about what they say that they do. As always, they fight everything with a lie. Right, Karen?
Yes, we've got to have that in the title. Liar, liar. No end of life. Liar, liar, liar. Like they lie about all these hate websites that they put. Oh, how they lie about Mike Rinder. They lie about anyone who speaks. Lie about Tony Ortega. Lies.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I was just thinking, something I heard from Sarge Steve Fouth, who was with Hubbard when he was getting ready to pass away. And I mentioned this to someone the other day, and it was a new thing to them. They were like, why did Hubbard sign his will just a few days before and change it? Hi, sweetheart.
Hi.
Anyway, per Sarge, Hubbard was having headaches and so forth. And he wanted to sign it. He didn't read it all, but he wanted to get it signed quickly. And one of the reasons I realized why it was being changed because it was making Norman Starkey the trustee. Because the prior trustee on the earlier will was Pat Broker. Now, what a lot of people don't know is that Pat had been kicked out of Creston by Hubbard because he had not gotten him an all clear so that he could come out of hiding and go back to the gold base. So Hubbard was mad at Pat.
An impossible task.
Exactly. Well, Mary Sue had said settle the lawsuits and they'd go away, and DM was always up for a good fight, so he wouldn't settle. Yeah. But and it was easy, and Hubbard dying made a lot of lawsuits go away. But that was something that had to be done, was to remove Pat as the trustee and put Norman on.
Right. Okay. Anyway, we want to thank everybody for being here. And if you would please subscribe to our channel. We appreciate anybody subscribing, and hit that like button. That really helps us out. If you've got any questions or comments about what we just talked about, please go down below. We check them all the time. Janis loves the comments. So anyway, go down to that comment section. If you would like to support our channel, you can buy us a coffee. There's a link down in the description. We appreciate any support that we get from that. And then finally, I just want to mention, if you'd like to become a member of our channel, just go to the join button. Sorry, messed that up there. Go to the join button right next to the subscribe button. Click on there and you can become a member of our channel. I want to thank you, Karen, for being a guest on our show today.
My pleasure.
And anybody, Janis or Karen, anything else you'd like to say before we
Please excuse Elizabeth having fun in the background and the dogs.
Okay.
Enjoy them.
Anything else, Karen?
I encourage you to keep an eye on Janis's channel. There are remarkable new little nuggets. Janis and Mark's channel. Mark and Janis have a way of getting extraordinary guests that no one else has ever featured. And the stories, if you're a Scientology watcher, this channel is an absolute must. I don't miss a single episode. I encourage you to sign on and follow, stay with us and follow the data, follow the information. You will be educated further and enlightened. Everyone wants enlightenment. Stay with this channel.
Thank you, Karen.
Okay, until next time, everybody.
Bye.
See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.